what is up YouTube? Today I wanted to do a review on the 2021 Can-Am X3 Maverick Turbo RR. Oh, I gotta do it again. The 2021 Can-Am X3 Max XRS Turbo RR. I think I got the name right. It's such a mouthful and it's such a long name. So we're driving out here in Glamis in the Sand Dunes, but I wanted to do a review on it. It's been 2 years. It's almost been 2.5 years actually. We have about 105 hours on here, 1,500 miles on this unit. Pretty much all me driving. I wanted to do a review and just go over everything that I like, everything that I don't like from an ownership point of view. When we were looking to buy a side-by-side, I wanted to look at the Polaris models, the Razor models. My dad said we should go with a Can-Am. Now my opinion of Can-Am back then was a little bit negative. I've heard a lot of issues with Can-Ams back then, and I just felt like they weren't as trustworthy as the Razor. My opinion's definitely been changed over the past 2 years of owning this unit here. Now let me start by saying that we have had 0 issues with this Can-Am, so absolutely nothing has broken, nothing has gone wrong. And you can watch my videos back and see what my driving style is like. I like to be aggressive, but I don't like to go balls to the wall. So I don't want to break anything while I'm out here. So I try and be careful on certain things. If I know a big jump is coming up, I'm gonna really prepare for it. I'm not just gonna go in blindly. I think that's what kind of separates people breaking stuff versus people not breaking stuff. So of course there's manufacturer defects and accidents can happen. I also feel like it is your driving style on how well the unit holds up, because I've driven this pretty hard. You know, I always make sure to take care, and it's really paid off because I haven't had any issues with this. Now I have seen issues with the Smart Shocks unit, so that's going to be more electronic issues. There's not a ton of electronics on this unit. I feel like you're not going to have much, if any, electrical issues. And so this thing is just so much fun in the dunes. But you want to go around a bowl like this, give it some power, boom. It just has so much pull, and the power really puts you back in your seat. The turbo spools up so quickly. I don't think it even spools up. I think it's just always ready to go, honestly. That's what it feels like, at least. So the Turbo RR is definitely the way to go if you have the money, if you can afford it. It is pretty expensive. It's on the upper end of the trims here, but it's so worth it. You get more power, you get more suspension. Yeah, I've also had people comment on the power as well as sitting passenger and whatnot, and they definitely feel the pull. You definitely feel the pull when you're in the passenger seat here. The pedal response is pretty good. It's not super touchy. You can be smooth with it if you need to. But you see, you can get going very quickly. And going around these bowls is super fun in this thing. And this is a 4-seater model. I have tried the 2-seater. The 2-seater is even more powerful, just power to weight ratio with the same amount of horsepower. So the 2-seater even pulls even harder. And see, I'm going up this dune, straight up this dune here. One more time here. And I'm not even giving it full throttle here. So I kind of manage the throttle a little bit when I'm going up hills. We don't need full throttle everywhere. Let's watch him go up. This is a 2-seater, same year, but it's a DS, so it's 64-inch wide. And it's a Turbo RR, so it's got the same amount of horsepower. So this thing has about 195 horsepower. A good amount of power in a light vehicle. Makes for a fun time. We have the original belt from the factory in here. So we haven't had any belt issues. Now typically when I do a hard run like that, I like to let the belt cool, so I'll take it easy here. Alright, let's talk about the suspension next. The suspension is, well, take a look. Oof. Oh. suspension is very soft on these four-seaters. If we're talking about the DS with the less travel suspension, that one's a little rougher. I'm not really a fan of that one, I'm gonna be honest. But the suspension on this four-seater, it's pretty soft, and I think it's set up soft. They think, the Can-Am believes that you're gonna have passengers, so they want to set it up soft so it can handle passengers. I think it's great for casual riders and drivers. It likes to bottom out if you're hitting too big of a bump and you're going too fast. So it does bottom out pretty easily. It's still not super jarring on you though, like it's not gonna hurt you when it bottoms out. It's not set up as a race suspension, definitely not. More of a casual suspension setup, and you know, the back seat is not as comfortable as the front seat. I think it's great for trail driving. You don't really notice that. In the dunes here though, and really hard driving, you can feel it. It's a little too soft to really drive it as hard as I would want. Now the front seat is definitely more comfortable. Front seats are definitely more comfortable than the back seat. The back seat is a little rough because that's where it likes to articulate in the back when you're going over whoops. Let's talk about the seating position. So this is versus a Razor, the seating positions are actually different. This, you're sitting back further. It's a more relaxed position. You feel like you're sitting in a car and just driving a car around the dunes. Whereas in a Razor, you're sitting straight upright like this. It feels weird to me because I'm so used to this position, but a lot of people like that upright position. Personally, I like the car position a little bit better. I just got out of my car and just jumped into this, and it's a pretty easy transition. Because you're sitting further back, it is a little bit more reach to the steering wheel. But you can also adjust the seat a little bit. There's not a ton of adjustment in the seat, but you can kind of slide it up and down if you want. Now these seat belts are amazing. So these are racing harnesses. As you can see on the X version, they come with the racing harnesses. I feel way safer in here with an actual racing harness. So I really like the feel of these versus just a regular seat belt. We bought the four-seater because we wanted to take people on rides. And as it turns out, the back seats are not as comfortable as you would think. So we don't take a ton of people out here. But the four-seater definitely rides a lot better. It handles whoops a lot better. It's just more comfortable overall. The two-seater is a little bit rougher just because of the shorter wheelbase. And you got to remember, if you're buying a four-seater, it's not going to fit in a lot of toy haulers. So that's something to just keep in mind. A lot of toy haulers will not fit a big four-seater Can-Am. This thing is 14 feet long, whereas the regular two-seater Can-Am is about 11 feet long. The Can-Ams are also really good on gas. We've been out for hours and hours before trail riding, and we barely used half a tank. So maybe doing like 30-50 miles, we've used half a tank. In the dunes, you're going to use a lot more gas because we're spinning a lot more, we're working the engine a lot harder. So over here you can see there's different drive modes. So you have a drive mode button. So there is an eco mode on here. It lessens the throttle response a ton, and it just allows you to use less power, less gas. I never really use eco mode. I think I've only had to use it once, and that was at the dunes here. But yeah, sport mode. So it's just eco and sport mode on this one. So we just typically run sport mode all the time. We had this MB Court Stage 5 system installed. Sounds great. It gets plenty loud. Would I do it again? Probably not. Just because I like to make YouTube videos. I don't feel like I really need a stereo when I'm making YouTube videos, and plus all the music is going to be copyrighted anyway. But I do like having a stereo in here when we take passengers. Fun to listen to music and go duning at the same time. Now you see on the gear shifter here, there's a high and a low gear. So a high gear is pretty much going to be most of your riding, probably 90% riding. And it depends on your location as well and what kind of riding you're doing. But I've used high gear 90% of the time. I really only use low gear when I need to slowly crawl up or down something. Alright, let's do a little speed run here. Remember, we're in the sand. We're not going to be hitting top speed. I think I've hit 86. So you can see it's pretty quick, it's pretty fast, and it is a CVT transmission, so there's no shifting. It just kind of, it gives you all the power like right off the bat. It's kind of nice. This is full throttle here. The seats are very comfortable. They have a nice shape to them. I can sit in these seats for hours at a time and I won't get sore or anything, so I really like the way they did the seats in here. We have a good amount of room in the back seats. So you can see there's quite a bit of leg room here. These seats can slide up and down depending on if you need to get into something back there or if you have longer leg people back here. I've had someone that's 6'2" sit back here and they were fine. I really like the way they did the sizing of the Can-Am here. We added this Ogio storage bag, so if you open it up, it's got quite a bit of room for storage items. So we have a toolkit and a spare belt, and then we also have a spare tire and a spare tire rack. So these are 11-inch wide tires in the back, whereas in the front here these are 9-inch tires up here, 9-inch wide. So it does have a staggered setup front to back. Now these tires are Bighorn 2.0s. These come on all the Can-Ams 2022 and older, I think, or 2021 and older. So these tires are decent in the sand. If you air them down to 8 psi, 10 psi, right around there, and run 4-wheel drive, they're very soft tires though. You can see I'm pushing here and it's giving way. So these are good for softer environments, mud, sand. They're not great on trails. I have gotten a flat. This is a new tire here, you can see the tread. But these tires work well all around. They're not great for trail, hard rock packed. So I'm going up this hill. These are some big whoops. The back end is absolutely dancing around. I don't have any weight back there, so, oh, there's a hat. I don't have any weight back there, so the back end likes to kind of dance around a bit. It handles whoops pretty well, but when the whoops get too big, it starts going downhill fast, and it just makes for a rough ride in the back seat at least. The front is not too bad, but you can definitely feel the back dancing around. So that can be probably removed with tuning. Alright, let's take a look at the brakes here. The brakes are a little mushy. They're not the greatest, I'm gonna be honest. Even my dad thinks so in his Can-Am. So you really have to give it a lot of brake input to get it to stop. But we'll get up to speed here and then we'll give it some brakes. Alright, here we go, and brake. Okay, you see, not too bad. They did lock up. Now in the sand, that's not too bad. So the brakes are alright. When you have 4 people in here, it definitely suffers from a lack of braking performance. Now one person in here, not too bad. I was able to stop in a reasonable amount of time, but the brake does feel a little mushy. Like you really have to give it a ton of input. Now let's talk about price. So this was $30,000 back in 2020. $30,000 would get you top of the line Can-Am back in 2020. I feel like that was an okay deal. You know, you do have to pay to play, but you are getting quite a bit here. Now recently the Can-Ams have become more expensive and they're running around $34,000. I don't know if that's worth it really. They do come with nicer wheels and tires, so I think that's nice. The interior is not great. I really don't like the interior that much compared to a Razor. If you go look in the new Razors, You look at the interior with the ride command screen. They just have a way nicer interior. Least favorite thing about this Can-Am is the interior. They have not updated the interior at all over the past few years. They haven't made anything standard here. So that's one of my biggest complaints. When I ride my buddy's Razor, I love just watching that big ride command screen. He has different settings and buttons on the steering wheel. Alright, so in summary, I want to wrap up this review. I have loved having this Can-Am for the past 2.5 years. I've had so much fun with it. My wife loves riding in the passenger seat. It's just a ton of fun having something to go out and do, especially having the top of the line Can-Am. It just has so much power, suspension, comfort that it's just a fun experience for everyone. It is pretty expensive for maintenance. It's about $600 for an oil change and an inspection and whatnot. So the service, you have to do 50-hour. Here in Arizona they do 50-hour and then 100-hour services. Some places do 75 and 150, but it is pretty expensive for maintenance. 600-700 bucks every year, I'd say. That's not too bad in the grand scheme of things. But yeah, thanks for watching my review on the Can-Am. I have a ton of riding videos. If you've discovered my channel through this video, go check out my riding videos. You can see all the rides I've done, all the places we've been.